I suppose, like most journalists, I'd always dreamt of writing a novel, but the lack of a plot always seemed to get in the way, until I went to Afghanistan. From the moment I set foot on Afghan soil, I was lost. It was 2001, and a few weeks earlier, Osama bin Laden and his happy band of murderers had obliterated the two towers. It was a pivotal moment in history and also my career, because I was subsequently dispatched to cover the war on terror. Understandably, my parents were beside themselves. In truth, I didn't know what to expect. I worked for Britain's biggest national newspaper. I flew business class, stayed in five-star hotels, and spent my cash on overpriced miracle face creams. I had never done war before, and it was a shock. Suddenly, I was sleeping on a dusty floor under a well-used blanket, showering using a bucket, drinking boiled river water and reminiscing about electricity. Within 2 months, I had lost 2 stone because I was scared to eat food that looked well past its sell-by date. And yet, it was the most fabulous experience of my life. There was a war on. There was fighting. Landmines littered the countryside, and I was shot at. But every day brought laughter, warmth, and friendship. The Afghans around me were courteous, curious, and proudly hospitable. And within 3 months, I had made friends for life, some of whom I now call brothers. Thankfully, this was just the start of my so far 8-year love affair with the country. When my newspaper lost interest in Afghanistan, I returned not as a reporter, but as someone on holiday. And in 2005, I took the plunge and moved to Kabul to take up a cushy little number editing the Sadaya-Azadi newspaper. This was a hearts and minds operation funded by the NATO-led International Security Assistance Force. In 2001, the Taliban had all but brought the once bustling city to its knees. 4 years later, Kabul was unrecognizable. Schoolgirls thronged pavements, women walked to jobs under umbrellas to protect their burqa-free faces from the sun, and businesses were thriving. The city had woken, and sharing the new dawn was a lively expatriate community made up of diplomats, aid workers, journalists, and security boys. After the breakneck pace of national newspapers, my working life was strangely civilized. Although most ISAF civilians opted for the free accommodation provided on base, I planned to be in Afghanistan for at least 2 years, and living in a metal container with another woman was not how I planned to do it. So I got myself a house, some manly help in the form of a Pashtun called Muhammad Sharif, and some company in the form of a rescue dog called Blister. Although Afghanistan is a proudly Islamic country, its people are in the main incredibly accepting of other lifestyles. Once the Taliban scarpered, a number of restaurants sprang up to cater to the burgeoning expat population. And unlike some Islamic countries, the alcohol ban only applies to Muslims. Westerners are free to drink themselves into whatever stupor they like, with the only rule being one of leaving guns at the door. Despite what most people think they know about Kabul, and away from the very real hardships experienced by ordinary Afghans, the city is enchanting and intoxicating. Therefore, when I sat down to write Born Under a Million Shadows, my only thought was to try and capture some of that magic. I wanted to give readers a different Afghanistan, away from the brutality, war, and domestic violence covered in recent books and headlines. And above all, I wanted people to care. Therefore, to do that, I chose a boy to narrate the story, someone young enough to see the good, whatever savagery the world might throw at him. I also made a conscious decision to steer clear of politics and history, and of trying to offer a solution to an unimaginably complex situation. Through Farwad, who was inspired by a young man I met on Kabul's Chicken Street, and who is the hero of my story, I hope I have done that. And if some readers come away with a little piece of Afghanistan in their hearts, I have done all that I set out to do.